The
two
Taylor
runs. Yeah,
Rogers.
It's
I
awful.
don't even know if that trade will pay off. We should do a swap back now.
Welcome to another episode of the Home Run Porch podcast. I'm Kevin.
I'm Madison.
And today we are going to talk about Field of Dreams, the movie. I'm assuming most people have seen the movie.
I mean, Kevin Costner is too pretty.
He's very
for you
pretty
not
in the movie.
to at least know that
he was
this
young
is a
in the movie. The movie
Yeah.
came out in 1989. I hadn't seen it in probably 20 years, but when we agreed to do this one, I knew I liked the movie. I actually read the book. It's based on the book Shoeless Joe by W.P. Kinsella, which is worth reading. I've read a couple of his books. He has
I'll
a
have
bunch
to read that one, yeah.
Yeah, it's follows it pretty closely, and it's worth reading. I would recommend it. But the movie, I think, is kind of made its niche.
For sure.
The movie, like I said, the movie came out in 1989. And it made $65 million, which seems like nothing nowadays.
I know, right? That's like
yeah.
indie film now. It's like $65 million.
Yeah, I mean, movies that cost $65
Three
million
Academy
to make.
Awards, too.
Kevin Costner, James Earl Jones, Amy Madigan.
Yeah.
I forgot how good this movie is.
Yeah.
I was trying to distill it down to what the movie's about, and most people go into the movie thinking it's a baseball movie, and it is that. But that's not when it's watching the movie at age 55. I realized that this movie is a father-son movie, and the sort of search for that relationship with his dad. And I'd forgotten that. I knew that was a subplot, but I really think that's the plot.
Like you said, the best baseball movies, they're a lot more about life than baseball.
Yes.
And I think it also is about the unspoken thing between a father and son, or just a parent and their child. Is like you go too long without saying, what you really mean to each other, and then you never do it. Like in this movie, and luckily, it's also, I feel like, about dreams too.
Yes.
A lot.
I actually think Field of Dreams is a great title for the movie, considering what Shoeless Joe was the book, because it is about his dream coming true of recreating that relationship with his dad. There's a moment when he's in the van after he's kidnapped Terrence Mann, and they're coming back to Iowa, and Terrence asks him about a relationship with his dad, and he says, I'd forgotten this. He told him that the last thing he said to his dad when he just left at age 17 was something kind of mean to him, and then he was his fear, which I think is a fear of a lot of people, is that they're going to become their parents, and he's afraid he's becoming that, and he feels like this baseball field is his way not to become that.
I feel like this movie could also be called like Field of Fate.
Oh,
you know what I mean? But it'd be a different audience. You may different audience for a different, because I think it's also about fate. But dreams is a little more,
Yeah. Now you don't
alluring.
You don't have kids because you're younger, 24. Yeah. But I have a son, and we connected through baseball. That was our thing, and I've never seen the movie with him. I don't even know if I have to ask him if he's ever seen the movie, because he's 20. He was a year younger than you.
Yeah.
But I think he would see the same connections to the movie that I saw about the father-son, and it ends with the father-son playing catch as the cars are pulling into the farm.
Do you think that's because another big debate about this is? Because the word for word, it's you want to have a catch. Was that the right terminology thing? Because you just you play catch, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I wrote that down. He does say you want to have a catch.
It's like you want to have a catch.
You want to have a catch, he says to his dad.
Yeah.
Yep. I would never said that. Let's play catch. Yeah.
Right, yeah. But I mean, I thought it was just maybe a choice that they made, but.
Probably. It could have been a writer thing, that sort of thing. Now, I played catch with my dad, but not that often. Maybe, I remember, but maybe 5 times. My dad liked baseball, but he didn't love baseball the way I did. And so it makes me nostalgic for my dad, but I don't have that bond through baseball with my dad. So when I think about that, I think, okay, so I don't even automatically make the connection to my son, but like you said, what did you say earlier about baseball movies? They're not really about baseball.
Yeah, like the best baseball movies, you're there for the baseball, but it teaches you more about life than actually, baseball,
Which is a great way of thinking of it, because I actually agree with you. I think it's really about life. It's about, is he going to lose the farm?
Right.
They didn't, and I just thought of this. I hadn't thought of this while I was watching the movie. He has a daughter. He has a young daughter. He doesn't have a son, so they don't show the tradition of playing catch, and the daughter never
almost dies by eating a hot dog.
Yeah,
but,
almost dies by eating a hot dog. But she's not in there to show that the legacy of baseball was passed down and blah 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 or anything like that. Because she asks him about Shoeless Joe one time, and he explains it to her. But she just does it because it's her dad, not because she really cares all that much about baseball.
Yeah.
Although she does enjoy going to the games, watching the games out in their land and stuff like that.
They're also, like, some of these are, like, the most quotable lines or just, like, thought-provoking. Like, James Earl Jones says, "The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball. America has rolled like an army of steamrollers. It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt, erased again, but baseball has marked the time." And I feel like we're getting... baseball has always been there, right? Mm-hmm. It maybe has never been the most popular sport with everyone, but it just keeps plugging away, I
think about one of the things I love about baseball is it's the same game as when I was a kid. I was telling you the other day that you could yank somebody from 1930 and plop them down in 2022, and they would watch the game and go, and they'd recognize it. Doesn't mean somebody wouldn't recognize football, but football's different from when I was a kid, massively different. Hockey's different, basketball's different, and it's just times change, the sport evolves, that sort of thing. I love that quote. I just wrote down the one constant is baseball because I didn't want to stop the movie and write the whole thing because the quote was great. Yeah. Another quote that I had, one of the funniest moments in the movie is when he goes to Terrence Mann's house and he's like, "How am I going to get this guy to go to the baseball game with him?" And he finally comes and fakes like he has a gun. He goes, "That's your finger." He goes, "No, it's not. It's a gun." And Terrence Mann, "Oh, okay." And he grabs the crowbar and he starts chasing him around the apartment. And he falls down and he screams out, "You're a pacifist!" And he's like, "Oh, that's right. I'm a pacifist, so I can't beat the crap out of this." Yeah, I was about to kill you with this crowbar. And the crowbar is like
it's huge,
3 feet long. It's huge. Yeah. The other thing, I'm glad they never made a sequel to this.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, aren't you dying to know? I'd forgotten this. Like I said, I saw it probably 20 years ago, and I've seen it probably 5 times. When Terrence Mann gets asked to go into the outfield, and
that'd be worthy of a sequel, don't you think?
Well, but then would that ruin it for us? Yeah. Then it's like, oh, okay, now I know what happened out there. Because you don't know. My whole thought is like, well, if that's where they go, that's their heaven or whatever it is. Sure. And he goes out there. Is that him metaphorically dying? Or I don't know. I mean, he talks about how he's going to write again about it. And Ray is happy about that because that was his journey. But he's mad. He wants to go out there.
Right.
He's actually quite furious with them. And Shoeless Joe goes, "You're not invited."
Right.
And it isn't until he realizes that his dad was the catcher, and he's like, "Oh, this is why." Yeah. Which is the great moment, and the sort of the reveal in the movie was that really the building the field was to
also
redeem his
relationship with his dad. Also, the part where I forgot the character's name, but the Burt Lancaster character.
Yeah, Archie Graham, Moonlight Graham. Yep.
Where he kind of gives up what he always wanted was to play in the big leagues and get a hit. To save his daughter, but
he says a great line in the film. He goes, "Do you look at you were that close to your wish and you didn't get to touch it? Do you see that as a tragedy?" And he says, "If I hadn't been able to be a doctor and help all these kids these years, that would have been the real tragedy. Yeah. That would have been the real tragedy." And we often look at the mistakes we've made in our own lives and wonder, "Oh, okay, what did I do? How could I have done this differently, or why didn't I take that opportunity and stuff like that?" And play that what if game in our brain, and he's trying to say, no, you can't do that. What the path you've led is great.
Yeah,
is important. So,
and also I think now that it's been a few years since the movie, but last year, like we talked about before, MLB has constructed a field in Iowa where, the movie was shot, and now they're playing games out there.
Okay, so I didn't realize this. You told me last year they played a game there?
Yeah, so.
Was it a preseason or was it an official game?
Nope, it was during the season. One game. White Sox, Chicago White Sox, and New York Yankees played there. In 2019, the MLB started construction where they, I think it's on the site, not exactly obviously where the field is, but on the same site where they leveled some, field and built I think it's a 5,000 seat baseball stadium.
So like a minor league stadium size.
Yep. And it's so very, the outfield you can see through and the corn is coming up. So it's kind of really cool. And the cool thing about that, like the intro to, I think it was on Fox, the intro for Fox, was they got Kevin Costner to come back. So the camera's following him through the corn, and all of a sudden it opens up, and like,
I got to look this up on YouTube.
The 5,000, like mostly males in that audience probably started crying at that moment.
Yeah.
And so, like anything baseball related, of course, it went to extra innings that game.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was a walk-off homer by Tim Anderson. But,
really?
Of course it went to, like, extra innings, and there was some sort of drama related to the first game at the Field of Dreams stadium. But
did they have, like, James Earl Jones and Ray Liotta and those people there?
It was just Kevin Costner. And so he threw out the first pitch. He actually got some time before the game to, like, address the crowd, and so that's where the players came in too.
Yep.
And they had, they would announce the White Sox, and then they would come out of the center field, and then they announced, the Yankees.
Is there a minor league team that plays regular games in that field now?
That's a good question because I don't know, and I don't know if they have one planned for this season. It'd be a good idea to have it every year, I'd imagine, But another thing came up during that was kind of some interesting was what teams should be playing there. Do you want the most popular teams and most people will watch, or like teams that maybe back then were an actual team? You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but I mean, it turned out to be
the White Sox is the obvious one just because of the Black Sox are part of the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I think baseball should do more stuff like that. Honestly,
I do. Yeah. Especially when they go. Back in the old days, Babe Ruth in the off season, they'd barnstorm. They'd go play games in these small towns and stuff like that in the off season, and you'd get a chance. You live because you wouldn't if you lived in Iowa, you weren't going to any professional baseball games.
Right. The closest stadium is I think the Brewers, and it's still 3 hours away. What I mean? So
you're not in 1930. You're not going. Back then, I don't know if the Brewers existed.
Then,
so the closest thing was Chicago, and you weren't going to that. You couldn't afford that. So, you watch minor league games or whatever. I mean, that's the kind of cool thing is that it's like, oh, baseball's a sport for everywhere.
Right. It's like every level. You know what I mean? Is very. You could go we could find a game probably tonight somewhere.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But it's like
the Twins are playing right now as we speak.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to watch that. Right? No, I'm just kidding.
They were up 1-0 when I came into the studio to record this. There are a lot of great quotes in there. I'd forgotten. I knew it. I knew there was the famous one is if you build it, he will come. And I got the goosebumps when he was sitting there, and I kept thinking, oh my goodness, I forgot how this plays out. Does he, if you heard a voice in your head, do I tell my wife, or is she going to think I'm off my rocker? It's I heard this voice out in the field,
Yep.
And he hesitates, and he's like, did you hear that? No, I didn't hear anything. Okay. And then thinks maybe he's just hearing stuff. And then he finally tells her, and she's kind of like, oh, yeah, that's great. Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Right. And then when he's with Terrence Mann at the Red Sox game, he doesn't buy, he just is like, this sounds wacky. He doesn't tell him, and he says, I saw that on the board, and
Yeah.
And that's when he realizes, oh, other people can hear it too, because that's a big part in the movie is that Timothy Busfield cannot see the players. His brother-in-law, Mark, cannot see the players, and he can. So it's like if he doesn't believe enough, he won't be part of it.
Yeah. Another one thing I think about that movie is the relationship between Kevin and his wife. Mm-hmm. The scene where he sees Shoeless Joe for the first time, and she's like, I'll put a pot of coffee on. You know what I mean? Yeah, at that point, it's like, that's what you want to hear from your wife.
Yes.
That. Like, I know I'm crazy, but it's true.
My favorite moment is when she said, I had a dream last night that you were at Red Sox Stadium watching a game with Terrence Mann. And he goes, was I sitting on the first base side about halfway up, keeping score? And she goes, yep. And he goes, and he points to we got a pack. I got to go.
Yeah. But But yeah, that's Field of Dreams. I mean, one of the best baseball movies out there.
Yes.
For sure.
If you have not seen the movie,
you can
watch
see it. It's on Prime.
If you have a kid, watch it with your kid.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a dad, watch it with your dad. If you have any sort of sports connection, you will love this movie.
Yeah.
So we are the Home Run Porch Podcast. I'm Kevin.
I'm Madison.
Thanks for listening.